And this lack of women in Bitcoin, this problem is sort of underlined by a lack of women in tech and finance, which Bitcoin has a leg in both worlds. And that's, so why does this happen? Catherine, would you like to speak to that?
Okay, so I actually think the lack of women in tech and Bitcoin is endemic of a problem that we have much earlier on, and that's girls in tech. I'm a huge advocate for STEM, especially for girls. STEM is science, technology, engineering, math. In the US, we have a crisis. Only 12% of engineers are women. In the decade between 2000 and 2011, there was a 79% decline in women in college expressing interest in studying engineering and computer science. And yet, by 2020, that's only 6 years from now, there will be 1.4 million jobs that are computer related. So if you are a parent and you're thinking, oh, job security for my kids, that's probably one of the best things that you can do to encourage your children to at least express some sort of interest in. However, only 10% of girls say that their parents even talk to them about becoming a computer science or engineer. So to me, it's a pipeline problem in moving girls into finance and tech, because now we're noticing the problem that there are no women in tech.
That's beginning to change as well.
Yes, so there are some bright spots. UC Berkeley has a huge number of freshmen right now that are in their beginning computer science classes, certainly. We see a lot of little bright spots in the horizon. At the beginning of December, I went to organize the Hour of Code, which was trying to get 10 million students to code for that 1 week during Computer Science Week in commemoration of Grace Hopper, who was a pioneering woman in computer science. And I lobbied the school and the teachers in the district and heard nothing. And so I decided to run it in my house, basically. I could only accommodate about 15 students, and I had 70 people sign up. And so that was a huge force in which I went back to the district and said, please open one of your libraries. And they kind of stood up and said, oh, wow, there is an interest there. So yes, I do think that there is change afoot.
Absolutely. She was referring to the Berkeley, for the first time ever in their introductory to computer science, women actually outnumbered men. So that is definitely a bright spot. And I totally agree with the fact that, we need to we have these little girls or we have these little boys, and it's kind of our fault. We direct them into a path that is appropriate for a little boy or a little girl. And I actually came into tech. I was a model when I was 11 years old, and I had been invited to New York to compete for a contract. And I went to a Radio Shack store, I picked up a book, and I looked at it, and I would not leave that store until my grandmother brought that book. And she said, why? And I said, because, Grandma, when I grow up, I'm going to be in computers. Now it's a few years later, and I've been in computers all my life. And I did a complete about-face. They had, flights booked and everything. But I was like, no, I don't like the way that people look at me or the way that people treat me, because I'm smarter than most of these people, right? That's what's going on inside my head. And turns out I have a pretty high IQ, so, But my family backed me on that, and they didn't push me to continue down the path that I had started. So I think it's up to us to make those changes.